One of my proudest accomplishments reflecting back on this year was when my friend Hannah and I created a Udemy course on life experience design, designing for your ideal life in 6 weeks. Hi, I'm Leah Federhoff, a user experience designer, writer, and life strategist, and I want to inspire you to thrive in work and life. There's so many frameworks out there when I talk about the design process. And one of those structures I like is called the double diamond. You start out at one point, you are at the discover phase. And this is where you just kind of understand your current situation, what's working, what's not working. And then the diamond gets bigger. You have that wide breadth of like all the things that you know, all those data points you can collect. Right? From a life perspective, this could be what you value, what your personality traits are, your character, what people know or have told you, what is representative to you, what do they feel are your strongest qualities and strengths, right? Like, how do you get that feedback from other people and from within yourself about who you are? Are you currently taking on too much right now? What's on your plate? Does your job bring you joy? Where is your time currently being spent, right? A lot of that self-reflection, right? And a lot of the episodes I cover, topics around like how to get stronger at self-awareness. And part of that is reflecting on your current state. So that's the discover phase. And then that's the broadening, right, of this first diamond. And when you get to that point, you want to narrow, right? And then you define. One way to do this is figuring out all the pieces of your life in different areas like finances, relationship, family, career, health, like mental, physical wellness, spiritual wellness, emotional wellness. What are your levels in all of those areas? And you start to define and narrow, like, well, what are the things that are causing you the most pain, I guess, your pain points, or where do you want to focus your attention now, right? Because if it's something's currently working or you don't really feel like that strongly about fixing it now, then leave it alone. But if there's something that calls to you, like, no, my life would be like 10, 20, 30, 100 times better if I could resolve this one thing in this one area, right? That's the definition phase. Like, figure out what that is for you. You can't do everything at once, but you can focus on one thing. So back in my initial career pivot, it was that aha moment where do I want to be spending my time for work? What do I want to be doing? And for me, that became my focus area for, 2 years, was just to answer that question, right? And it happened in a day for me to even get from like the discover to define. But the define itself, right? Like that next diamond or that next part is the broadening again of designing. And this is that exploratory phase where you try new things and you test and prototype. So in design, you don't just like solve one solution and stick with it. You create something and you test it with other people and see if it works, right? Like if you're designing a chair, right? Like, is it purely functional? Is it aesthetically pleasing? Is it scalable? What materials is it made of? Is it being resourceful? Same with like, if you're designing an app, right? Can someone other than you actually walk through the steps that you had intended them to do to achieve some kind of goal? Can they do that without someone like hand holding them or, without a big instruction manual? How do you make that intuitive and feel good to use? Right? So you need to show it to other people. Likewise, prototyping in your life or figuring out design solutions, right? For me, it was trying different classes, reading articles, books on different topics, trying different things. I knew I wanted to do something creative, but was it drawing? Was it, illustration? Was it calligraphy? Was it print design? What was it, photography? Right? And I narrowed and I found what I was naturally good at and what I felt motivated to get better at, right? And once again, like that became web design and that area. But, the other things like are still like hobbies, or I'm glad that I learned those skills. But, for me, like they didn't fit well with my interests or like what I would think to be an aligning career. And as I'm talking about this, from the discover to the definition to, the design phase, like all this can happen in a matter of days, weeks, months, or years, right? And there's overarching, like maybe years of doing this with like baby steps in between, right? Like one semester, I'd take a class on one topic and then I'd decide whether I wanted to continue that or not. Or I read one book, right? And that book could be, in a span of a week, where I'm kind of doing that like prototyping. Can I see myself doing this? Can I try something to test the waters and then get rid of it? Whereas a semester, right, it's a little bit longer time. When I did my master's program, that was a 2-year commitment, right? And I really could have quit at any time, but I, pushed myself to get it done because I knew that it was in service to the larger goal I had for myself of finding and landing a career that, felt really interesting to me. So as I go through these double diamonds, the time frame, it just depends on what you're committing to at the time and how long you think it will, you'll start to really get the results or feel the impact of those results and make a decision whether you want to keep going or not. And then obviously the best prototypes are the ones that you can quickly throw away without, a lot of resources. So before I did my master's, right, I tested the waters with like shorter classes, books on the topic, until I was confident enough to know like, okay, a 2-year commitment is something I do want to pursue, right? Once again, like quitting my job didn't happen overnight, but I made sure to create something I felt comfortable with enough to take a risk to change careers. So you need to decide what that comfort level is for you as you're doing these design explorations. And then finally, delivering on that, right? So this is the prototype piece, but also the execution piece where you do make that commitment of, well, what's next and what will you commit to? So the way I decide to enroll, put money down, get a student loan and everything for my master's program. That was my launch, right? Or delivering on this, this design process or that part of my journey. Once again, when I gave my 2-week notice, when I had a toxic job and had nothing else lined up, but I knew it was healthier for me mentally to leave that job than to stay in it, that's when I delivered, right? But I did explore other things before I felt confident. I tried to see if there was other places in the organization that I would be a better fit for, like maybe another department, which there wasn't. I threw myself into other things like other ERG or employee resource groups, like leadership trainings, things like that, things that interested me. But, they'd work for like 1 or 2 months, but it still wasn't sustainable. Right. And then obviously I made sure to wait until after I got married and had a honeymoon and all that. And, got to go on a vacation and use some of that vacation time before I did quit my job. Right. So it's kind of like figuring out like when is a good time to launch or deliver on that. Right. And then what I did, right, I also set an intention, well, what do I want to do for those next few, weeks or months that I could be unemployed, and how would I start finding a new job? So I followed those same steps of the process, the double diamond, right? Like discover, define, design, deliver until, like I could get that into anything I did, right? So once again, like a few years after that, once I had kids, decided to move out of the Bay Area because the commute wasn't sustainable. The cost of living was really high. My husband and I set a milestone, like, our goal is to find a family-friendly area we can move to where my kids could grow up in the same hometown all the way until they leave for college. So we set out a time frame to move out of the Bay Area by the time my son was, turned 5 or like would enroll in kindergarten. So, we defined that. We discovered like what are the things that we like and don't like about our jobs, like what would be the thing that would get us to commit, right? Like finding a house we both liked and, how could we have it so like my mom could live with us so we'd be close to his parents. Like what kind of job would he need and what kind of job would I need? Like, somewhere that's flexible. What are those things, right? And then we started doing design exploration. So we checked out different areas we could potentially move to. Could we relocate from my job in a different state, where rent could be cheaper? Or, like, would I have to find a different job, right? And that becomes that design exploration, trying things out. Like I didn't quit my job multiple times, but, as baby steps. Like I did an internal transfer where when I transferred, I planted the seed to a job where, hey, by the way, so like there's a chance like 6 months from now, I might be moving out of the area. Is there an arrangement where this could work, right? So they already knew up front I would be commuting, once a month or, like moving out of the area, but still wanting to work, and you set that foundation, those expectations, right? So none of this just happened organically, but that's what I believe about that intentionality is if you know what your non-negotiables are, right? I've talked about that in a different episode. It just makes it so much clearer where where you don't want to waste your time at all. And there are other things that are worth waiting for or pursuing and, like pulling different levers, right? To see what feels best for you and your family, your career goals, anything like that, right? And that's part of the delivery phase. Then once you get clarity and it could work or you have like a good, you've reduced some of the risk. It's still risky making any change, but you've reduced the risk for yourself or if you've gotten a taste of it, where you feel like you could pursue it, then you can go set off and do it. So that's basically life experience design and this concept. Hannah and I, going back to our Udemy course, came up with a lot of different exercises on each of these phases on how you might, hold yourself accountable to doing these things, or how do you even get clarity on what your big life goal is in the first place, right? Which is a really big, meaty problem to solve, and then we have exercises for that, even exercises on just identifying what your values are, and then how do you come up with this, mission and vision statement for yourself? How do you do like mind mapping or a fishbone diagram or, rosebud thorn? Like there's so many different exercises to help you get that clarity, so that was fun, right? Because I can talk all I want about the theory behind it all and the framework. And the next piece is, like how do you unblock yourself, right? Because you live your life every day. And sometimes it's hard to find time and space to carve out distance from just living your life to being an observer and being aware of your life trajectory. Like if you were to continue on your current path, where would you end up? And how different is the life you actually want from that, right? So how hard do you have to turn that steering wheel to, pivot to a different place? And how much work are you willing to do to get there? So life experience design in a nutshell, a topic I'm super passionate about, and the undercurrent of Swishie and what I talk about here. If you're interested in taking the course, I'll add the link below, but it is how to design your ideal life in 6 weeks on Udemy. And also watch a lot of these videos, right? Like a lot of past episodes cover how to increase that self-awareness to even understand in your discover phase, your definition phase, like what is the most important to you? What is the most pressing problem that you feel you need to solve in order to unblock yourself? So that's all I have for today. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions about any of the phases by leaving me a comment below or, tagging me at Swishie Official on Instagram. I'd love to hear, have you started to apply life experience design to your life, either intentionally or, even before you heard about this episode, and how that's going for you. So that's me. And maybe if you really like this topic or want to go dig deeper, I'm happy to do future episodes. Also, deep diving on any of those phases or exercises or topics. Anyway, so if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with your friends. And if you want more inspiration to thrive in work and life, check out my website at swishie.com, which is currently going through a redesign right now. So I'm excited to do an unveiling in a few weeks. Thank you for watching and see you next time on Swishie. If you enjoyed this, subscribe and share with friends.